First things first, our never-ending 10% discount seems to have gone on for another month, where you can save 10% on all of your eShop vouchers, any Nintendo Switch Online, your Microsoft Xbox points, and we've also got some of our reviews on there. Hi everyone and welcome back to SwitchUp. Today is the series that we haven't done for quite some time, Buy or Avoid. There's another category in there, Wait for a Sale, but it doesn't have quite the same ring to it, does it? This is very much the back of the magazines back in the day, where you'd have the mini reviews with the scores. But I'll be covering off a couple of my favourite picks from the recent Indie Direct, which, let's face it, wasn't mind-blowingly good, but there were still some nice choices. We'll go over Soundfall, Opus, Echo over Starsong, Gibbon Beyond the Trees, and of course, Nintendo Switch Sports. So are they buy, avoids, or are they wait for a sale? Well, I'm Mark Walker, and let's find out. First up then, we've got Nintendo Switch Sports. And just as with Wii Sports, it features a number of different motion-controlled sports games that you can play locally or online. My expectations have been remarkably low for this, honestly. Even for Nintendo, it looks very run-of-the-mill. You can create your own character from quite a limited variety of customizable options and then get playing. Now, each of the sports plays out in a different way and using a different number of joycons, which is shown here. Playing solo is essentially pointless. And it's not what the game's about. It's about jumping online and getting a group of you together. And in those situations, it can be quite fun. I was particularly drawn to the ridiculous implementation of football, where forget a move to tackle, instead you can flick both Joy-Con down to do a dive-in header. There's a sprint button, and the rest is just carnage. 4-on-4, headless chicken action that, as I say, with a group of you is fun, but relatively shallow. The bowling is very similar to Wii Sports, only here you've got more players, you're playing online again, and it plays out like a tournament with different rounds that you actually progress through. Now, all of the games require a certain amount of space, and it tells you exactly how much, well, at least how much is recommended. And while the motions are relatively intuitive, I don't think it's quite as good as far as motion controls go as the Wii. There's a swordplay game here as well, volleyball, badminton, and they're really straightforward. Most of these are essentially just about precision timing and angling the Joy-Cons in the right direction. Might not sound incredibly fun, it's okay, but I'm certainly not blown away. Now, something I didn't have time to try out is the leg strap accessory, which is £8.99 here in the UK, with the digital version of this game being £30.99, or you can get that bundled with the physical version for £39.99. And I think that's probably where this actually excels, used as a way of making exercise essentially enjoyable. For me though, it's certainly not a buy. It's not an avoid because it can be very fun, but I'd be waiting to get the physical version on a sale if possible, or at least buy it for lower than its RRP. But it's pretty expensive for what you're getting. I already knew all about Gibbon Beyond the Trees because my daughter was playing it over on iOS and she loved it. Now, it's a very short, 1 hour long story short, free-flowing adventure, placing you in the role of a gibbon swinging through the trees. It uses a weighted physics system which works really well, and it's linked to a very simplistic control system. By holding one of the bumpers, you'll swing, which is a certain speed, releasing will jump, and then pressing the other bumper will allow you to either run across a branch, which is a little bit slower, or if you time it just right after a decent swing, then you'll slide, which is the fastest move in the game. Through a combination of those buttons, you're racing through the trees and soaring through the air. It feels very refreshing. Despite not having words, it does a great job of telling a story. It's all centered around this family of gibbons, and perhaps rather obviously, but very true, they're trying to escape from us pesky humans as we seek to destroy their habitat. It looks absolutely incredible. The mixture of 3D effects and hand-drawn with the lovely backgrounds really is impressive. This, combined with the atmospheric sounds of the jungle, serve to heighten the experience. Unfortunately, the game suffers from some frame pacing issues. This was particularly evident in comparison to the iOS version that I played before. It's a shame because it does affect the overall experience. It's not terrible, but I would have expected those to be ironed out pre-launch. At its best, it is an experience I'd recommend people play, but I wouldn't be paying £8.03 on sale or £11.99 for a 1 hour long game that doesn't run as well as its iOS counterpart. If you do have an iOS device, then I'd suggest just playing it for free on the arcade. Otherwise, I would be waiting for a sale on this one. That then takes us on to Soundfall, and I wasn't entirely sure what exactly this was, but it's a few different things. On the one hand, you've got a world map with an old school stage progression system. This isn't randomly generated, this isn't a roguelite, you're working through handcrafted spaces. What you've got here is a dungeon crawler come rhythm game. Each stage has its own BPM, and you'll need to shoot in time with the beat to do the maximum damage. If you miss fire, then gradually you'll overheat your weapon and have to wait for it to cool down and be able to fire again. Misfires still do damage, it's just a little bit less. There's a dodge button, and once again you'll have to time that with the beat. And something that's very cool is at the start of the game you can actually customize the input latency of the audio to suit your own rhythm. What that means is sometimes if you've got a different type of TV or your sound system is not tuned quite right, the game could feel out of sync, but using the calibration it means that it's spot on for you every single time. That was a nice little addition. Each stage sees you moving from A to B with the occasional lock-in battles, seeing different waves of enemies entering. In these moments it feels more like a bullet hell shooter, but then you start to see all the different pieces of loot drop in, and then between rounds switching out for the better gear. It's where it's at its most addictive. Now the controls are quite tight, the rhythm mechanic works well and doesn't feel like a gimmick, and there's also a 4-player co-op mode here as well. Where it doesn't quite hit home for me is in the visual department. The enemies look quite generic, and as far as designs they're not overly inspired. While I don't particularly mind the isometric perspective with the 3D visuals, they feel a little by the numbers. Aside from a few lovely cutscenes, I found that a little lacking. As you'd expect, the audio is outstanding. There are literally hundreds of different tracks, and there's a decent amount of content with 10 different worlds to work through. If you enjoyed games like Cadence of Hyrule and you're a fan of loot dropping dungeon crawlers, certainly stick this one on your wish list. At £24.99 RRP, it's a bit too expensive for me, and I did find it gets a bit repetitive, particularly as the difficulty increases and you're going back to the start of a stage. If you're not fully invested, it might feel like a bit of a grind. It's another one where I would say it's not an emergency pickup. If you bought this, you would definitely not be disappointed, but personally I'd be happily adding this to my wish list and looking for a decent sale. Last but not least, we've got Opus Echo of Starsong Full Bloom Edition. This is another visual novel hybrid that has 3D puzzle sections, and with this version they added in the Japanese and Chinese dubs. There isn't an English dub, which is a bit of a shame. What we've got here though is a brilliant game. It feels like a mix of Ghost in the Shell, Blade Runner and some of my favourite science fiction films. The story is expertly written and it's all based around a resource called Lumen, which is discovered in space and which essentially causes a galactic war. Everyone wants it, and as you'd expect, the large corporation comes out on top, but can't stop desperate explorers from seeping through the cracks, and eventually licenses are given out. Throughout the game you'll navigate using your starship. This has its own resources which determine where you can go. You can scan different planets, try and triangulate new locations, and all of it's set against a genuinely enjoyable adventure. It's memorable, it's incredibly emotive at times, and as someone who personally doesn't really gel with visual novels, I was so impressed with how they managed this amalgamation of genres. It clocks in at a hefty £22.49, but I absolutely think it's worth that price. It's about a 7 to 10 hour long adventure, but there's also around 5 hours of extra content in here. Personally, when I play games these days, I'm looking for those ones that leave an impact on me, where I feel like I've genuinely experienced something, and this ticks that box. For me, Opus Echo of Starsong is a solid buy. And that's it for today. It's been one heck of a day. Started out with half my family being ill, my wife's ill, the 1-year-old didn't sleep, and then decided when I gave him a cuddle that he would decorate our bed with his own substances. I know that's too much information, but it gives you an insight to the kind of life of luxury that we live here at SwitchUp Towers. Thanks so much for watching, to all of our patrons that support us, and to all of you that leave comments down below. I'll be down there, hopefully replying to some of those, and we can have a good old chinwag. For all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch Up. Cheers guys, see ya!